This is the finale of our 2018 Community Read, the evening with Gabrielle Hamilton. As you may know from years past, Skidompha Library hosts our Community Read as a way to bring people together, begin conversations, make new connections, and promote literacy. And as I was told a little while ago, this becomes our family. We do all of these things together. This means a lot to us and our mission in the community, and we are grateful that you are here tonight. I'd also like to thank our event sponsors, and I'll read my list and then I want you to give them a resounding applause. First National Bank, Lincoln County Publishing, H.M. Payson, Rennie's, Tenji, Maxicali Blues, Wicked Scoops, Sea Smoke, the Wave Foundation, Demerscata Bank and Trust, Rising Tide Coop, and Chapman & Chapman Insurance. Without their support, none of this would be possible. We're really so proud to take instruction well. When I chose Blood, Bones, and Butter for the 2018 read, I never imagined the author herself would be here with us to speak about her writing. We knew it was a long shot, but we wrote Gabrielle a letter. It was a love letter, really, from a little town in Maine we assumed she had never heard of. We wanted her to know that we'd been moved by her book, and we were about to share it with our entire community. And if she wanted to join us, we'd be really okay with that. And to sweeten the deal, we sent her oysters from our river. As it turns out, Gabrielle wrote right back, telling us of her intense love for and loyalties to libraries, and to say yes, she would come. We are grateful to have her here in support of our library. Not only is she incredibly generous with her time, she also has the distinction of being the winner of the 2018 James Beard Outstanding Chef Award. She is the author of countless essays, creator of innumerable delicacies, star of the television series Mind of a Chef, and one hell of a writer. Please join me in welcoming her tonight, chef at Prune and the author of Blood, Bones, and Butter, Gabrielle Hamilton.
Do I sit?
You can do whatever you want.
God, I'm so much more used to standing, but I didn't even think about that. This is so... like I'm really a writer in the library, but I actually think I might have to
Yes,
make it feel better, and then I might have to get undressed too, because I'm now having so many nerves or whatever. Hi. Hi. I did come because I do have a fierce and ferocious loyalty and fondness for libraries. When I was a kid, our library in my town, I think the maximum number of books you could take out was 5, and our librarian let me, with my stack, come, and she always let me take the 9 or 10 that I had, because I was very good at bringing them back and reading them very quickly, so she always extended the quantity of books I could that I could borrow, and I loved it so much. I'm gonna hide back here. I'm not, but I do want to stand a little bit. The other reason I decided to come, besides that very important one, is that I thought the letter that you wrote to me was so well written. And it not that there's anyone young enough here that this would mean anything to, but I think it matters so much to have good writing skills, to be able to communicate and to write your letters. It was persuasive. I often read resumes and I'm like, no, thank you. You did not have proper punctuation or lively language. And the oysters that you sent were eaten by my wife. And in the follow-up letter, I think Tori wrote, and said, I hope you got our little snack treat and that the staff conveyed the message to you and didn't destroy the evidence with lemon and hot sauce. And in fact, they did destroy the evidence with lemon and hot sauce. I was going to read a little bit because I think I've been taught over the years that people like to hear the work read by the people by the person who wrote the work. It seems funny if you've already read it. Have you been reading this book, in fact?
Yeah.
So maybe it seems weird to just reread what you've already read, but anyway, I've been told that this is a good thing to do, to have the voice of the writer. And then my children are here. And they are 12 and 14 and have never read this book yet, which I think is okay for now. Not that they don't know all the swear words and all the drugs and all the things that I've told them about in life, but it's given me the opportunity to read a chapter that I was quite reluctant to include in the book because it's kind of juvenile. And it's not particularly literary, but now, this was when, I don't know when I wrote this, in 2008 or 10 or 11, something like that. When did this come out? 100 years ago. I don't know why, but this chapter is now resonating with me all over again, and I'm super glad I included it. And it has poop and maggots in it, so I mean, what could be better for my 14 and 12-year-old? I thought I'd just, make things lively here with some rat stories. So, and I think, do I design this evening? After this, do we just go into can we just talk? Yes. Great, because I don't want to have a presentation. I just would rather chat and ask and answer. That would be better. Okay. One day, I unlocked the restaurant in the morning, rolled up the heavy gate, got the ovens going, and then went downstairs to the basement prep area and turned on all the lights. I unlocked the office door and smelled it immediately and unquestionably: human shit. I looked around, checking and rechecking the soles of my shoes for dog crap. I saw nothing. I put on my whites and apron and changed into my clogs and smelled it again, a big whiff of human feces. I checked the bottom of my clogs, nothing. I unbolted the back door of the office, which leads to nowhere, a small passageway between buildings with an ultra-narrow and steep stairway up to street level. This is protected by a rickety chunk of chain link fence so that random derelicts can't wander down off the street and jump up on the fire escapes and rob the apartments above the restaurant. As soon as I pushed open the rusty old back door of the office, I found what I was reluctantly looking for. Someone with very, very loose bowels had managed to crawl over the chain link fence and squat in my office doorway, unloading his guts onto the stoop and the door itself. It was half a mountain of soft, crusted over, dark brown crap on the outside, where it had been left to dry, and soft, mustardy brown inside, the way guacamole gets when I'm not, unfortunately, the kind of person who would ever ask someone else to do something that I myself am not willing to do. So rather than save the delight for the Mexican porter who would be here in a few minutes, I went and got the gloves and the dustpan and the pine-scented industrial cleaner and began. Some of the shit had settled into a pool in the gravel and debris outside my door. This I could more readily scoop up with the dustpan and knock out into the waiting garbage bag. But the rest of it had to be dealt with in hand-to-hand combat. With a kitchen side towel wrapped around my nose and mouth like an old-time bandit, I scraped and scrubbed and shoveled and doused the whole contaminated area until the whole world, it seemed, smelled so much like pine cleaner that it was equally unbearable. For days, like some kind of olfactory chiaroscuro, we breathed pine cleaner, but then there, at the very bottom of the inhale, there would be a subtle note of human shit. As I was finishing and surveying my morning's work, I looked up the narrow staircase to street level and lurched a couple of steps backward. On the second step from the top was a rat, a dead rat. Actually, the more I looked at it, a nearly dead rat. I could see it breathing, its body vaguely rising and falling with its last weakened gasps, and occasionally I could make out the tiniest, subtlest movement in an arm or the neck. This challenge I just did not want to tackle, especially not from below, and risk having it tumble down onto my head or come magically to life just when I approached at eye level and have it gnaw at my face. I wanted a superior vantage point, so I re-entered the office, bolted the back door, walked through the pine-scented gas chamber, up the stairs, through the dining room, and out onto the street. Coming around the side of the building, I reached the top of the staircase and got a better look at the rat. He was still breathing, and yet the rat looked, corporally, if you will, completely dead, as if it had died at least a full day before. It did not seem biologically possible that it was living, the way its eyes were long ago caved in and dried out, and its mouth was in full rigor. Yet, unmistakably, its long, plump body was swollen and vaguely undulating. Then, I had no doubt whatsoever, it started to move, ever so faintly. The rat started listing heavily to its side. It started to slip off the second step. The rat slowly, like a sock filled with coffee beans, slouched over and landed with a pillowy thud on the third step, and then exploded with thousands of maggots teeming inside. What had looked like shallow breathing was the undulance of maggots at a meal. Ephraim, the porter, had arrived and was inside sweeping, but I just couldn't foist that onto someone else. I went and got a gallon of bleach. Just don't ever go to the restaurant business. Not even a week later, I was on the Martha Stewart show, demonstrating how to prepare Italian wedding soup. It was a glamorous day. They sent a sleek black car to pick me up, me, in the back seat of a black Lincoln Town car, all the way up the Taconic to her studios in Connecticut, in my sunglasses, on my cell phone, dialing every friend in my phone's address book to narrate to them where I was at that very moment, in a private town car sent expressly for me. And then the hair, and then the makeup, and then the schlepper who fetches you a bottle of water and a cappuccino and a small plate of fresh cut fruit. When the production assistant at the studio had offered me a cappuccino, I was totally thrown. After all, that's my job. I'm the schlepper. Oh, no, please, thank you. That's so nice of you, but really, I can do it myself. Just show me where, and I can fix myself a coffee or something, and I'll do it myself. Really, thank you. That's so kind of you. He stared at me a second and said, I'll just get it for you. How do you take it? Okay, light, no sugar. I thanked him profusely when he brought it, and he told me a kind of alarming story about a famous chef from Boston who'd been on the show, who was apparently a great deal more comfortable than I with the whole being served by the schlepper routine. Oof, that sounds ridiculous, I said. Well, he said, clearing my empty fruit plate, I don't know how you stay so humble. And I nearly burst out laughing with images of maggoty rats and the stench so very fresh in my mind. Oh, that's not a problem with this line of work, I said. And then what? The car dumps you back at the restaurant just before service. You swan through the joint in front of all your employees in your heavy for TV makeup. The waiters and dishwashers and line cooks ooh and ah appropriately at your general fabulousness and want to know everything about Martha. How was she? Was she a bitch? And on you go in minute detail until it's 3 minutes before 6 and dinner service must start, so everyone scatters back to their positions. And you, fabulous celebrity chef you, downstairs you see that the prep sink drain hole is clogged with slimy caul fat trimming that no one has bothered to clean out, and you automatically, like a reflex, thrust your hands into the drain and spend a few good humbling moments digging unknown slimy shit out of the prep sink. But there was a brief moment in the beginning when I got a little swelled. I got seduced by customers coming up to the pass leading to the open kitchen and heaping praise upon me. I was stunned, glowing, swollen with their attention, weepy, brimming, beside myself. This is the best meal I've had in New York City, they said. This is better than Gramercy, they claimed. You're a genius, they declared. And then soon after the best meal comment, a woman came walking up to the pass, straight toward me. I was smiling my prepared smile, expecting the praise, thinking, the sweetbreads really are amazing. The woman reached across the slate counter to, I thought, warmly touch me. And then I saw it, her empty cocktail glass and her napkin crumpled up in it. Can you put this somewhere? She asked, and as I took the glass from her hand, she grabbed the cuff of my chef jacket and wiped her greasy shrimp toast fingers on it. It took me 10 full seconds to climb down from my perch, but when I did, I smiled at her warmly, genuinely, and I said, my pleasure, and I meant it. Well, that's what I have. That took 5-10 minutes. That's good. I think I have to entertain you for an hour and a half or something crazy.
Did you want to read this part?
We can ask you some questions.
Sure, yeah, I mean,
Be first. Be
please.
first. I was so charmed, as you know, by the first chapter of your book. And I wonder if you could tell me, where's your family now? That part of your family.
Where's the family?
So the thing that I've learned to do at these interviews over time is to say the question back, or, but I think everyone knows what we're talking about, so I don't have to do that. My family, the first chapter of the book where we're kids, right? I'm only 10 at that time. And we're having lamb roast and sleeping by the fire. Well, I'm just about finishing a second memoir. It's not actually a memoir. And so it pretty much locates everybody where we are now. And it starts, which is not to ruin a punchline in any way, the opening, the beginning premise, the sort of organizing principle of this book, which is called Kind Regards, starts with the suicide death of my oldest brother, Jeffrey. Right. And so that's a kind of starting point, and it's not exactly a memoir, but it is it's turning into a kind of poetic, younger sisters kind of autopsy of a family. So it answers this very question, like, where is everybody and what happened? And it was so ripe and potent and glittery and possible. And a lot of people didn't quite actuate. Jeffrey, for one, who was so smart and so talented, but never quite got traction. So it's been an interesting question. And then I don't know why I am going at it this way. I think it's my own brain and neurosis. But it's the second brother down out of 5 kids. And I have this feeling, which is not right or correct, or I don't have to win in any way, but I'm like, why are my parents winning and we're losing? So I have this is the lens through which I notice myself asking these questions and writing this book. So, but it's really funny. Also, there's a ton. He was a little bit OCD, and he was a woodsman. And so he's the kind of guy who had to need 90 minutes to take a complete shower with flossing. Gabrielle, I had to floss, that kind of thing. So to find the tree, to sort of be very knowledgeable about the woods and the trees, it does have some humor, or gallows humor, if you're like me, imagining this suicide death of like, how does this guy who needs 90 minutes to shower go pick out the tree? I mean, obviously it's not a happy ending, but so that's one answer to where some of us are, and it's much more complicated, and I hope you'll invite me next
I was
book.
going to say, I'll be looking
I
forward
hope
to
you'll
reading
invite
your
me
book.
back. That's going to take 3 dozen oysters on that one.
Well, are you going to get any this time?
Exactly. But I think the question that I get asked most often is, about my mother-in-law. And in the paperback, there's an added chapter, so some people know that.
Yes, yes, wonderful.
Yeah. And
Please elaborate.
she died in, 2013?
I don't know if it was 2013 or 2015. I know it was an odd number.
Right. I think it was more than a couple of years ago now.
Yeah,
So,
so it was
yep. This is cheerful. Death. Okay.
For the audiobook, you need to read it, because that made all the difference. My husband and I, when we heard your book, like, it has to be read by you. It just means that much more. It's so powerful.
That's so nice. I regretted it professionally when I, oh my God.
There we go.
I love you already. You're trying to get me out of the darkness. It's quite a job to read your book on tape. It was a week of work, 8 hours a day, and it's not work that I'm particularly trained to do. Now you think you can hear that I do speak more connectedly and know how to carry and have your diaphragm and all that, but it should be done by professionals. And so I'm glad to hear you say that. I thought the book sounded weak and thin in the
It was excellent.
throat.
It made, to me, anyway, I can't speak for Al, but it made the journey that much more real.
That's interesting. I've been listening to a book on tape read by an actor, and it does make my skin crawl at certain moments, you know, where it's very actorly, and which is their job, to be actors, but there might be something nice about having the actual person.
It was
It's nice
so
of you to say.
personal. It was great. Like, it didn't have to be honed to be professional. It was
Right.
just your words. It's your words and you reading it. What could be more professional than that?
And I feel like especially with memoirs and biographies, having it read by the author is better because it's your story.
Sure.
And you don't want somebody else telling your story.
Okay, I have a really practical question. There are phrases from other languages in the book, and to use one of my kids' words, is it douchey? Pronounce the words properly. We've been having this, you know, when we call the produce guy to order, and you want to say Belgian endive, and they're like, why don't you just call it endives, lady? Or, you know, okay, right. And, it's I don't know, is it a pretension to pronounce the foreign words?
Okay, can I just share a story?
Please.
So we went to dinner next door, King Eider. You don't mind me embarrassing you.
At the pub?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
So go ahead. We've been on it for 23 years.
He asked for an Elder burger. It's an Eider burger, but so
It's the senior version of the burger.
so it's okay to.
Lately, I've been really getting into this seltzer called LaCroix. It's big.
Since you're in Maine, can you tell us the story of the Liberated lobsters?
That was my second choice for tonight, I thought. Yes, I was a camp counselor. No, I wasn't a counselor. I was a cook at a summer camp in the Berkshires in Massachusetts for several years in a row. And the custom at the end of the summer was to prepare a very lavish dinner for the 21-year-olds, 19-year-olds who are typically at the age of the counselors. And it was a lobster dinner. That was the big treat that they asked for. I think I gave them a couple of options and they went for the lobsters. And it's on the very last day of camp. The kids all go away, and then all the counselors and everyone on the staff hustles quite quickly to delouse and get all the sheets off and break down the kitchens and put away all the pipe cleaners and all the clay, etc., and just break the whole campus down. And then the idea is you come down to the yard fire pit and have your big celebratory dinner. And some counselors were already taking a run into town, far away. You know, it's like a 30-minute drive in the van, because there we are in the hills, with foxes and bears. And I asked them if they would pick up my lobster order at the fishmonger in town and bring it back with them. They were doing a laundry run, and they went into town, and you know what 20-some-year-olds do is they smoke a lot of pot, and then they drink beer or whatever they did. And they came back, and I think they smoked even more pot. And I heard the van come down the driveway, and they picked up my lobsters, nestled in their coffin, perfectly asleep. Supposed to be put right into the walk-in, and I would come down and deal with them in the morning. And I think they got a little too baked, and then their sort of UNICEF humanitarian NIPERG, I don't know, got going, and their ASPCA feelings started to percolate, and somebody went and got all the lobsters and suffocated them in the tube in sinks filled with plain, fresh, running water. And everyone knows that lobsters don't live in plain water. Not everyone. Not everyone. So I came down in the morning as the first person on campus awake. Usually I would brew the coffee, and I stumbled on a lobster when I entered the kitchen, and then there was another on the floor, and then I followed my eye to the trail of tears, and the lobsters clawing each other on the back to get up out of the sink, and yeah, it was sickening. It was so sickening.
We are having the funnest time.
Death, all kinds of death. This is good. Goof. Oh gosh. What am I doing here?
For folks from Maine, though, you added a lot of power to that part, because you had said that
Yes.
most people don't know that it takes 13 years for them to reach that point where they end up having them. So I mean, it was very redeeming in terms of people having to think for a second of what it means to be into the food industry. Like, it takes a lot to cultivate this food and have it ready.
I was livid. It was so obtuse, it was so entitled, it was so unknowing of how your food is made, how dangerous it can be, that people do get their foot caught and yanked over. To walk behind, to be on the back deck of a lobster boat is a big deal. It can be, right? People die all the time, it's hard work. Also what the lobster has to do to get that big, of course. So I really appreciate what you're saying. And
Well, you had the best, most humorous ending to it. I worked at a summer camp for 9 years, and I was the program director at the end of it. And by the end is when they don't realize it, how thankless it is at that point. And the fact that you just brought Kentucky Fried Chicken by the fire pit. Yeah. Just left, didn't even talk to me. It was perfect.
it's very nice.
You've traveled a lot, and first of all, thank you very much for opening your heart to everyone with this book. Not many people would have the courage to tell the story, but you've traveled a lot, and it appears you're focusing in on Italy and Rome, but you've been to so many other places. What would be a second choice?
Greece. Yes. I think it had always been my greatest love. I have loved the food, the landscape, even I find the Greeks quite friendly, but not at first. They have a certain arch coolness up front, which even that attracts me a little bit. But when I met Michele and when I was introduced to Italy, which I had been to before as a freelancer, if you will, as an independent, there's nothing to compare to being introduced to a country by someone who is a native of it, and a city in particular. It is an incomparable experience, and it kind of forever makes you an insider in a way. And that's how I think I turned completely to Italy, because of that sort of eating in a home, understanding the jokes, knowing why these phrases are, who this politician is and what's not good about him or her, why the TV is on this channel, or you know what I'm saying, that quite intimate experience of a culture that you can't had any other way. But I do really love Greece, and I think that's a strong second. I wanted to just say that it's nice of you to comment on the courage to tell the story, but I wish everyone would. It would, I think, make all of our lives so much easier to live if we told the truth about ourselves and our experiences. And I consider it kind of an act of generosity when people tell me the dead truth about their experience. And I think we should all do it to each other. Not in a too much information way, or let me tell you another thing about myself, blah, but it would really help you out if you knew what marriage is really like, or it would really help out if you knew what it is to parent, or just the things that we don't quite tell each other. Especially now in the age of Instagram, where it just looks like everyone's got it going on. Except for me. Hey, what's going on? So it's even more so, I feel like, a duty and obligation and sort of community service to tell the story the way it is. I'll do okay, hello, and we didn't get to you. So
I was wondering about the emotions involved with not seeing your mother for, I think it was 20 years.
And then seeing her again? Do you mean, and then seeing her again?
Yes.
After the 20 years of not seeing her? Well, that's such a great question. I have to think back a little bit, because now it's been 30 years, and I've had a second experience of being in touch with her, which is very different. So it's very interesting about one's own evolution. So I think the experience of seeing her for the first time after 20 years was both instantly as if I had seen her 20 minutes before, because it's that kind of familiarity with even the scent of one's breath and the touch of the skin, those things that are just will never, ever, ever go away, or you can't deny them, they're so genetic. And it was dry as just looking at this person, wondering if my lips will be wrinkled like that too. When I get older, I resemble her remarkably. We clear our throats in the same way. When I hear her voice, I'm quite struck by that. And at the time, it was a bit of a, I was, prepared and guarded and armored up. I was ready for all the things that I disliked so much. And so I